Okay, so on this one, they want us to solve, we have two logs added. So let me bring that down. So we have log of x plus log of x plus 2 equals 7. So we have two logs added, and we're wanting to solve this equation. This is going to be a long one, a somewhat challenging one. Okay, so if you look down at the notes, so here's the exam 4 notes, and solving two logs added, subtracting. How do we solve two logs added, subtracted? Well, first step, combine the two logs into one log by the log properties. What does that mean? Adding becomes multiplication and subtraction becomes division. Remember that? Remember how we learned those log properties? Let's do that step number 1 first off. So 2 logs become 1 log by adding becomes multiplication, or subtraction becomes division. Remember how we learned log properties a couple sections ago? Maybe it was just the very last, it was the very last section. Yeah, it was 6.5. Log properties, remember 2 logs added, what's remember adding and subtracting are the easier operations, right? Adding and subtracting, that's the first thing you learned as a kid. When you're kindergarten, first grade, they started teaching you to add. So adding, subtracting is the easier operation. It's easier for 2 logs, right? Like a job is easier for 2 people. Then when you change it to 1 person, it becomes a harder job. It becomes multiplication times. So adding becomes multiplication, which is a harder operation for 1 log, right? It's like a harder job for 1 person. Multiplying is a harder operation than adding, right? You learned multiplying when you were a little bit older. So they didn't teach you to multiply in kindergarten, probably. So right, remember how the properties work? Adding for 2 logs becomes multiplying for 1 log. So we change to multiplication. We go from 2 logs to 1 log multiplied. Now, if that was subtraction, which we'll do also in this section, if this had been minus, then this would be log of x over x plus 2 is 7, right? Because subtraction becomes division, but adding becomes multiplication. Remember all those properties we learned? Okay, so let's go forward then and do the problem. So this was adding, it became multiplication. For 2 logs, the easy operation of adding becomes a harder job for 1 log multiplication. So that's step number 1. So step number 1, combine the 2 logs into 1. Now put the invisible base 10. If there's not a base showing, then there's a 10. If it's the word log, if it's ln, then the base is e, right? And then do the swish thing, which gets rid of it, the log word. So yeah, we have to put in the 10. So step 2, put in the base 10 and do the swish. And when you do the swish, you lose the log. So I'm going to put in the 10, right? Because every log really has a base. There's no such thing as a log without a base. There's always a base. If it's not there, it's invisibly there, base 10. And then do the swish. You grab the 10 and you go boom. Well, do that last step a little better. Boom, to this whole thing. So that'll become what? 10 to the 7 is x times x plus 2. No more log. We crossed off the log word, right? We lose the log. Are you tracking with me there? So there's step 2. So step 1, we combine. We combine 2 logs into 1 log by the properties. Adding becomes multiplication. If you happen to have subtraction, that becomes division. Then you put in the invisible base 10, because every log really has a base. If it's not showing, it's 10. If it's an ln and it's not showing its base e, but if it's regular log word, it's not showing it's a 10. Put that in and do the switch. When you do, you lose the log. That's how you change from log form to exponential form. See how it's exponential now? It's powers. Okay, and now what are you going to do with that? Well, step 3, multiply out both sides, then get a 0 on one side. Okay, let's do that. So multiply out both sides. So I'm going to go distribute. That would be x squared plus 2x. 10 to the 7. That's got 7 zeros. If you do it on your calculator, it's 10 million. It's a lot of zeros. It's 10 million. 10 to the 7th has 7 zeros. Okay, so, and then it said get a 0, right? Didn't step 3 say that? Yeah. Multiply both sides, get a 0 on one side. So if I'm going to get a 0 on one side, let's just, easy way to go, let's just subtract 10 million from both sides. Right? So, boom, boom. So this is 0. This is x squared plus 2x minus 10 million, like that. Okay, so multiply both sides and get a 0. We did it. We got a 0 on one side. So that's what we do when we have x squared, right? We got to get a 0, and now we got to solve it. How are we going to solve it? You remember, plug into the quadratic formula. So now we start cranking it on the quadratic formula. So that's why this is a long and tedious problem. Now let's do it. So x is going to equal negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So that'll be negative parenthesis and then plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's stick the stuff in there. So a is 1, b is 2, b is the 2, a is the 1, c is the whole minus 10,000, right? A, b, and c are those numbers in front. So minus b plus my square root of b squared minus 4 times a, and then I'm going to run out of room here. This is going to be 10 million. $10 million. Here we go. All right, all over 2a. What was a? A was a 1. There we go. Okay, that's weird looking, isn't it? Let's keep going. X is negative 2 plus or minus. It's going to be the square root of, okay, so 2 squared is 4. Notice the signs. Be careful on your signs. Let me be real careful. We got a minus. Oh, and I blew it. I wasn't careful on this. This should have been a minus 10,000, huh? Let me try that again. This is a minus 10 million, I mean. That's a minus, so we got 2 minuses there. So this is going to be plus 40 million all over 2. You see that? See how the minus and the minus, the 2 minuses make a plus. Because you have minus 4 times positive 1 times minus 10 million. 2 negatives make a positive. Okay, so then we get x is minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 40 million and 4. What a weird number. 40 million and 4. Okay, And so now we're almost there. I promise we're close. So now it's x is minus 2 plus the square root of 40,000,004 all over 2. Or the other option, minus 2 minus the square root of 40,000,004 all over 2. So we got to do those two different answers. So use your calculator at this point. Now remember, when you're going to do this on your calculator, you got to parenthesize the numerators. Why? Because there's more than one item in the numerator. So whenever we use our calculator with a fraction, if the top or the bottom has more than one thing in it, we got to parenthesize it. So negative 2 plus the square root of 40, 123,004 equals, divided by 2 equals. So I'm getting the answer 3161.2778, or and the other answer, negative 2 minus the square root of 40, 123, 124, boom, divided by 2 equals negative 3163.2778. Okay, so there's the two answers we got. Now, round to 4, yeah, they want 4 decimal places. Yeah, okay. So, but here's the deal. Throw this answer away. Why? Why do we throw that answer away? Well, do you remember? I know this is probably a little bit tricky. Remember the original question? Let's go back to the original question, right? It's log, right? You can't put a negative or a 0 inside of a log. Do you remember that? If you check on your calculator, we cannot have 0 or negative inside of a log. You can try it on your calculator if you're not sure. Try the log of 0, it'll be error. Try the log of, negative 1, same thing, error. Can't have it. So any answer like this one that's negative, see how this is a negative answer? You can't have that. Why? Because you go back to the original question, if you put in the negative right here and right here, it's going to make the inside of that log negative. We can't have that. So that's what we call a false answer. That can't be the real answer. You throw that one away. And so the only answer is 3161.2778. That's the true answer. The only answer. Throw that other one away. So there's a lot to this. Let's recap. There was a lot to this question. So what happened again? So we had 2 logs added. So what do you do when you have a couple of logs added or subtracted? Step 1, you combine the 2 logs into 1 log by using the properties. Like adding becomes multiplication. Adding for 2 logs becomes multiplying for 1 log. Or subtraction for 2 logs is division for 1 log. So we had adding, which is an easier operation for 2 logs, became multiplying, harder job for 1 log. So 2 logs became 1 log. And then the next step, we had no logs. Sometimes I call this the log countdown. 2 logs, right here, 2 logs, 1 log, no log. See, 2, 1, 0. Lift off, as they say, right? 2, 1, 0. 2 logs, 1 log, no log. So the 2 logs become 1 log, and then I get rid of that 1 log by doing the swish thing. Put in the 10 base, right? It's not showing its base, which means it's 10. Do the swish, gets rid of the log. 10 to the 7 is that. Then just multiply out, get a 0, do the quadratic formula, plug it in, do the 2 answers, but we throw away any negative answers when we have logs. That's only because of logs. As I said here, you cannot have 0 or negative inside of a log. The original question was a log. You might think, oh, are we just always throwing away all negative answers now? No. Negative answers are good unless the original question had a log, right? See, the original question is you can't put a negative inside of that x. X can't be negative because it'd be log of a negative, which is error. So it's not really true. So when you have a log question, you throw away negative answers. You keep only a positive answer. So there we go.